Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. Here we go, everybody. You watch the show. You know we love bringing worldwide leading experts on the show in their particular space. And there's so many people that are really making impact. I mean, they're really changing the world. You know, we go about our days and we look around and the day looks like it's a regular day, but there's people sort of behind the strings, behind the scenes, the people that are really changing the way in which we interact with each other, changing the way in which we have dynamic interpersonal discussions with each other. There's ways in which people are making sure that we all have the ability to reach our unlimited potential. And we have one of those people on the show today. I'm so excited to have Mr. Dwayne Bryant on the show. His friends call him DB, which I love. He's the president and founder of Intervision International. And wow, I mean, not only is he, go on the circuit and talk to kids and help children, and he's also putting together incredible opportunities for us to be able to talk to each other, not talk over each other, but talk with each other in a way that we can learn from each other and also, more importantly, hear what each other has to say so that we can have a better, meaningful society and world that we live in. So, Dwayne, I'm so excited and honored to have you on the show. Welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Hey, Andy, it is my absolute pleasure. Super excited to be here with you.
Me too. I'm super excited. We have so many questions. I hope I don't hold you over because when I knew you were coming on the show, I just lined up all the questions. But before we get started, let's line it out. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. Tell us about Intervision International, what you do, and then here we go.
Sure. Intervision International, we are 26 years old this year. We provide social emotional learning curriculum, workshops to parents, students, and teachers all across the country. We've mentored to date over 35,000 students directly. We've engaged over 15,000 parents and probably about 2,500 teachers. Also, I wrote the book, The Stop, Improving Police and Community Relations, based on the fear that my students have of law enforcement. And since then, I've been able to travel across the country as well, speaking to police, speaking to community municipalities about what do we need to do in order to improve the relationships. And so that's my mission. I love people. I love humanity. And I think that we got to do a better job.
Yeah, we want to talk about The Stop. We had a pre-interview that was so interesting. But one thing you just said, I mean, mentorship. I mean, when I think about Dwayne Bryant, I think of DB, I think of mentorship. I mean, 35,000 students. And one thing you love to do is to mentor people. So let's talk about that. Where did that come from? Did that start earlier in your life? Did you have a mentor? Why is mentorship such an impactful part of your personal mission and personal life?
That's a great question. Actually, it's because I am that student that I go to save. So every child I save is like I'm saving myself all over again. My father left my mom with 6 kids. I used to get into many fights. I was a bully. I got put out of an elementary school. I didn't care that much about education. I didn't care that much about myself, because if the man who is supposed to love me doesn't, why would I care about myself? And so it wasn't until I would say 9th grade, I had a teacher who taught world history, but she taught it from an Afrocentric perspective, which was the first time I had any clue that my ancestors actually contributed to the world versus just were slaves. And when I went to college, I had a gentleman, Dr. John Walford. He was my mentor. And this was my first time learning that you're supposed to match your belt with your shoes. Who knew? How to dress, how men walk, how men carry themselves. And I was like, whoa. And literally within a short period of time, I emulated this man to the point like, yo, I don't want to be him, but I know I can be better because he's way better than I am. And so what I began to do is spend time in college, going to the local public schools in Miami, talking to students about getting into college. I went to college on a full academic scholarship. So I figured at least I can tell them how to get there on an academic scholarship. And then after college, I worked for Johnson & Johnson in sales. Every city I lived in with Johnson & Johnson, I was a public school role model. I just volunteered a lot of time. And one day in St. Louis, there was a gentleman, Sharon Hopkins. He wrote me a letter and he said, "Dear Mr. Bryant, you come here, you spoke to me, and I realized that men can use their brains instead of their fists to solve their problems. I want to be better." And I literally sat in my office crying like a baby. And that's when I knew my purpose was beyond Johnson & Johnson.
See, that's beautiful. What a story. And I'm going to call you DB. I hope you don't mind, DB. One thing I think of you, I sort of call you the king of conversations. And one thing that caught our attention about what you do and the way you do it is when you mentor the young people, and of course you speak before thousands and have spoken before thousands of young people, but it's not a one-way conversation. It's not you just talking to them, and trying to drill into them. You like to have a conversation. You like to listen. So where does that idea come from in your life that listening is probably more powerful than actually talking?
Wow, you've done your homework. So when I talk to my staff before we go into a school, I tell them if you're talking more than 25% of the time, you're talking way too much, because what we're supposed to be doing is drawing out, transforming the trajectory of our young people. We can't do that if we're talking. We have to be able to listen. We have to listen in 3 dimensions. We have to listen to what they say. We have to listen to what they did not say, and we have to listen to what they really wanted to and what they intended to say. So that means you got to really be focused on what the students are saying, and that's the only way you can communicate properly.
Wow, I love it. I love it. It's great, and you've brought that into the police precincts as well. We want to talk about that, but on your website, you have this great quote about the gazelle and the lion, and I can read it or you can share it with the audience.
Oh, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
It says, every morning in Africa, I'm going to read this now, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion or it will be killed. And every morning a lion wakes up, it knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle or it will starve to death. It doesn't matter whether you're the lion or a gazelle. When the sun comes up, you better be running. You better be running. I love that. I mean, that's so good. And when you teach the young people about life and how to integrate themselves as a positive member of society, of course, that's what it's all about. We don't need any more negative people that are involved negatively impacting society. We want people that are positively becoming a great member of society. You teach them that, hey, start the day, start it running, get it going, be a positive influence. What's the reception like when you talk like that and then hear what they have to say back to you, to the young people, when you have that message?
Sure. Well, it's funny because when you first go in, you're literally competing against negative programming, negative home environments, negative community environments, and sometimes, quite frankly, negative school environments. So when I'm thinking about a school at the south side of Chicago, Harlan High School, back in 2012, when we first came in, literally the kids had to go through metal detectors. They had to get screened for everything. Some of the security guards were cursing the kids. So that was normal. We were like, whoa, what's going on? And so within a few weeks, some of the guards would be like, hey, you never raised your voice to the students. I mean, don't they misbehave? We're like, yeah. But we have to model. We have to show them what it is that we want them to become, and we have to show them a better way and a different way. And so we began to talk to the students. First, they thought, you guys are full of crap. This stuff can't work. And we're like, well, hold on. Let's compare it. The people that you say that you listen to, is it working for them? No, because they don't believe this. But everyone on my staff have a minimum of a bachelor's degree, no criminal history, no arrest. We are not drug addicts and gangbangers and all of this stuff, but we're people who contribute to society and become productive citizens. We're telling you what we know, not what we think about, not what we read somewhere. And so therefore, because we embody the message, it gives it power. And because it's consistent. One thing I realized early on, Andy, is that with students, you can't come in once a year, twice a year, and think you're going to make a difference. No, because what happens is they go back home and they get reprogrammed. So the power of our programming is because of the consistency, because we're going to show up and we're going to be there, they see that the message is real because they're used to grown-ups coming in, promising things and not delivering.
Yeah, it's so powerful. You know, you come in with a power punch, but like you said, if you don't follow it up, and relentlessly follow it up, that power punch is going to sort of disintegrate after a period of
Yeah.
time, and they go back to their old habits, they go back to their old thoughts, they go back to their old negativity, if they have that to begin with. Now,
Correct. I like what you just said, the power punch. So imagine this. We go on with a power punch, pow, we knock you right in your mouth. And you fall back. Before you fall back, we catch you. We pick you up. We brush the blood off your mouth. We straighten you up and say, hey, that hurt, right? Life is going to be a whole lot harder than that. So now that we're up, now let's impact your mind. Now let's punch you in your brain so that we can start learning. Now let's punch you in your character so that it can get better. Let's punch your behavior so that everything is now lining up towards you reaching your destiny.
Yeah, I love it, DB. And one thing that you're real big on, and again, for the people watching the show, I mean, check out what DB has going on. I mean, he's got the videos, he's got all of his lectures online. I mean, you can just almost get DB-ized, if I could call it. And, you change your life. I like the idea, DB, that you like to have people, what I call, lay aside mediocrity. In other words, this whole idea of mediocrity, it's very prevalent. I mean, let's just be average. Let's just be mediocre. But you'd say, hey, no, let's lay that aside. Let's put our thoughts, our speech, our action into a different mindset so that you're not mediocre. You could be great. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Sure. Well, the reality is what you just said. Mediocrity is doing just enough to get by. You know, when I talk to my students, they say, hey, I have good grades. Okay, what are your grades? I have C's and B's. I said, actually, a C is just average. A B is just above average. So is that your maximum potential? They're like, no. And it's so amazing when I ask them, how many of you are doing the best that you can? Raise your hand. You might get one or two hands in the whole classroom. How many of you could do better if you put your mind to it? 95% of the students are raising their hands. I said, what this means is my room is filled with untapped potential. And so that means that you know you can do better. And then I asked the question, why aren't you doing better? And the reality is, some of them, for what? Some kids get teased for being excellent. And I tell them, whenever excellence meets mediocrity, mediocrity is always insecure. And mediocrity wants to go at excellence and tear it down because mediocrity wants the image of being excellent. And it knows on any given day, the best it's ever going to be is mediocre.
Yeah, I love it. And of course, you have a pulse on what's happening throughout the community. You've learned a lot. We spoke a little bit about the police force and what's going on with the police. And, you and I both agree that, we want great police out there doing great work because we want to be protected from, let's just say, the bad guys. But at the same time, we also think that any career, any profession, we need to have constant and never-ending improvement. And we need to improve the professionalism of the police force as well. Let's talk about how Intervision International looks at that and what that has become as part of your offering, which has been looked at in a very powerful way and has resonated for so many police forces throughout the country.
Sure. Well, we believe, first of all, police are human beings. My father was a police officer. Even though he left my mom, in my head, he was still my hero, and I had no evidence to back it up. I wanted him to come home. I did not want him to lose his life on the street one day. Some of my father's friends who was coaching our schools were police officers. So we did not have a disdain in my life growing up, us against them. That is a newer kind of thing. But police officers also make mistakes. Police officers, you only need an associate of arts degree, a high school diploma, and 60 credit hours of training. So therefore, and it's not to be a slight, but you're not necessarily getting the cream of the crop in terms of college educated, in terms of people who've been exposed, like FBI. You have to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. They want a master's degree because they're looking for a little bit more of an elite type of educational background. You and I know when you go to college, you meet people from all over the world. You meet people with different backgrounds, different cultures. So that exposes you to different thought than where you just grew up or maybe around your community. So first of all, understanding that police officers are human beings. They have feelings, they have thoughts, but also being a human being means that they're flawed, meaning that they're errors. meaning that they have stereotypes, meaning that they have prejudice. And this is all based on where they grew up. It's not just the white officer, it's the black officer, it's the Hispanic officer, et cetera. So whenever I show up, it's so funny. They think I'm getting ready to do a DEI presentation, diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm like, look, you don't care about that, and I don't care about that either. That is not what I'm here for. But I'm here to try to make a human connection, because the reality is the only reason why I wrote the book is because I asked my fourth, fifth, and sixth graders, if you're on the playground playing, minding your own business and doing nothing wrong, if a police car drove over, what would you do? And when my babies say run, something is wrong with that scenario. And we can't blame them. We can't say it's because their daddy is a criminal. And no, some cases that might be the case, but it's not the majority of the case. So what I try to do is I come with data, statistics, real life case studies, scenarios, interactions I've had with my students. I have videos entwined in my presentations so that they can understand that what we have to do is humanize the people that we serve, the people that we serve and quote unquote and protect. And there was a recent study I just saw that said many officers, even though you may take implicit bias, it does not change your behavior. So just because you understand your implicit bias, it gives you awareness, but it doesn't change behavior. What I like to do is change behavior, and that's hitting them right here at the heart.
Wow. So after you do your program, I would imagine some of the officers, some of the chiefs, some of the captains, they come up and they have commentary, to give you. What's some of the positive comments that you've heard after you get done from the people that participate in your program?
Sure. One guy was a sergeant. He said, Mr. Bryant, thank you. He said, your presentation did more for me to humanize the community that we serve than all of this other stuff. Another officer came up and kind of gave a confession. He was like, you know what? This was the best thing. He said, I realized I've been wrong. I said, what do you mean? He said, I used to go behind black guys and say, hey, what about that warrant? And if they run, I enjoyed chasing them, wrestling them down, and locking them up. I said, let me ask you this question. What if they didn't have a warrant? He said, well, why would they run if they weren't guilty? I said, there's this thing called trauma, and everybody responds differently. Some people flight, meaning they run. Some people fight, meaning they turn around and swing on you, and now you escalate the situation. And some people freeze. But we all have different trauma responses. So what you've been doing, sir, is you've been traumatizing the community, then blaming that community for the trauma that you've inflicted on it. Then you've arrested them. Now you're taking, if it's a father, out of the home. So now the child don't grow up with a dad. I say, in essence, you're like a part of the problem. And you create, and he was like, I never thought about it. I said, yeah, I just want you to think differently, man. We deserve better. And guess what? You deserve better. Because there's a bigger thing than that. It's called karma. It's called reaping and sowing. It's called causality of the universe. You get what you give. And I tell officers, I said, many of you take pride in being a warrior versus a guardian. I said, but the warrior goes home and also slaps his wife, goes home and curses their kids, goes home and drinks. I said, so you take this macho, overly manly stuff back home with you, and you're destroying your own life. Your own kids don't even look up to you. So is it even worth it? Because what you give is what you get. May not be the person that you gave it to, you get it back from. It might be in your own household. We have to develop humanity.
Yeah, it's so good. Where does it go from here? I mean, it appears that people are enlightened, eyes are opening, people are bringing you in, people are interested in learning, they're interested in communicating, at least some people are. Some people are interested in asking the right questions, and you're mentoring and able to listen and give them back solid mentorship, if you will, through your program, and of course by writing the stop. Where does it go from here? What's it look like? In other words, you do a lot of work in Chicago. I mean, the police can't fix Chicago. That needs to be fixed, in the home, in the schools, through society. What combination of things, DB, do we need to do to make this a place where everybody wants to live in a harmonious way?
Sure. I think if I had to sum it up in one word, is leadership, right? And so if I'm doing a parent workshop, and I'm engaging them on social media or conflict resolution or bullying education, hey, where are your kids learning this from the home? When I see a child misbehave, acting the complete fool, I can almost 100% follow them home and find the evidence of which I'm looking for or why they act that way. So we have to have leadership in the home, first of all, first and foremost. We also have to have leadership within the community. You know, you have churches, you have youth organizations, you have organizations where students are looking at adults, and we have to be able to see leadership, because right now, TikTok is raising a lot of our kids. Instagram is raising a lot of our kids. YouTube is raising a lot of our children. So if they don't see real life examples that they can emulate, then they believe that that's normal. Also, police also play a role. When I'm in the schools, I tell them everyone in this school has a role for school climate. The janitor, they're like, the janitor? I said, oh, absolutely. What if the janitor is sweeping up and a kid walks by and he takes his broom and slaps him and says, you just a stupid fool. You're not going to be anything. And just keep sweeping and no one hurt him. That one child had just been impacted. That one child goes into the classroom angry, creates more chaos and drama. Now that teacher has a bigger problem. Now other students have a bigger problem. So what I think what we have to do is understand that leadership is right here. We're all looking for this leader. They've been either assassinated or they're sleeping right now. They're not coming. So we have to wake up and we have to understand we are the leaders that we're looking for. It can't be that's their problem. It doesn't affect me in my neighborhood, because guess what we're seeing now? Gold Coast, Chicago, they thought they were safe. They thought they were free from the crime. No more. Everyone is impacted by it. So everyone has to care.
Yeah, I like that. And of course, I think about it. I think about this sort of personal leadership that, you know, you've become known for. I'm almost thinking that it has to do with someone's self-esteem, where we need to have people's self-esteem improve, and then they can become almost like their own leader. So they're personally responsible for their own leadership. And then if everybody becomes a leader and everybody improves their self-esteem, then the entire sort of population sort of levels up. Is that sort of the idea?
I think that is absolutely the ideal. But if we waited for that, you and I will probably be in the grave of a few centuries by the time that happens, because it'll take so long. So while we try to empower everyone, but we must be empowered leaders, right? So let's say, for instance, in a classroom, because I always base everything on a classroom. Let's say you have 25 students in a classroom. Usually 3 or 4 students can take over that whole class and turn it upside down. So what we do then is we empower those 22 who are afraid and say, hey, where's your leadership? You got to stand up. You have to take accountability. This is your class. You have to want to learn. You have to make sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to do. So now we're empowering the 23, because you might not reach those 3. They may be clowns, but you can at least reach one of the 3. But if we can make sure that those 23 who are capable and competent and have the capacity to lead, make sure we do that. What we normally do, Andy, is we focus on the 3. We hold the whole classroom up. We criticize the 3, and the 3 are like, this is great. I'm getting some attention. And the other ones are just like, here we go again. No, we have to reframe that.
Wow. What an interesting way to approach it. You work with elementary school kids. You work with middle school, high school, university. I mean, postgraduate. I'm wondering, you know, we're such a group of people now that are so influenced by social, you know, the TikTok you mentioned and the Facebook and the Instagram. Is there an age, DB, where it just becomes so hard to change people because they're so ingrained with their thought process that, you know, all things being equal, maybe you're better off working with some younger kids to really get the impact?
It's funny you say that. So we started in high school, and I realized in high school, hey, it's not too late, but it's getting a little bit late in the game. Then we began to expand into middle school, and we began to see gains in middle school. But what's interesting is middle school, you got these hormone raging. And so some of the guys can't even focus or even concentrate, prefrontal cortex issues, et cetera. Our super sweet spot was like your fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, sometime third grade, because you can tell a fourth grade, I tell you what, guys, we're going to walk on this roof and we're going to flap our arms really fast and we're going to become eagles and we're going to fly together. They're going to go, yeah, let's go fly. Where the other kids, older kid, like, you think I'm stupid enough to get up there on that roof and flap? I'm not even listening to you, dumb. I don't have time for that. So the younger kids, you have an ability to have a higher trajectory. The older kids, because life has already happened to them, by the time they become adults, and at some point, you know, the work is so hard to just try to get them to keep going up. It's a lot of effort.
Yeah. Wow. What impact from your standpoint is what happens at the home? I mean, you already mentioned you follow a kid home who's acting like a numbnut. They're going to most likely have a numbnut situation at the house. Yeah. But we have young kids, and they have great teachers that really, you know, they want to be a teacher. They love being a teacher, and they do their best and they do their hardest, and they don't get paid as much as they should. We all know that. And they're fighting against this thing at the home. You know, they're fighting against the numbnuts at the home. Let's just say, I'm using that word because there's no other word that I can just come up with right now. Is there a chance? I mean, does the kid have a chance, you know, with the teacher at the school, with the situation at the home that's less than ideal?
Yeah, the answer is yes, because the right word by the right person at the right time can transform a life. For instance, Sharon Hopkins, St. Louis, Missouri, around 1994. I spoke at a General Assembly at his high school. He came up to me afterwards and said, look, I like what you said. Sounds real good, but you're going to be just like everybody else. You come out here, you talk pretty words, and you disappear. It's better that you not even show up. I was like, oh. So at that time, I'm 27 years old. So I'm like, yo, dude, I told him, I said, listen, let me talk to you over here for a second. I said, I will beat your ass right here in this auditorium. You talk to me like that again. I said, don't let this suit fool you, because I'm not too different than you, and I'm not going to have that disrespect. He was like, so I gave him my card. I worked for Johnson & Johnson at the time. I said, tell you what, if you're serious about your life, call me. By the time I got to the office, he had already left a voice message. So I called him back, and I started just talking to him, you know, like once a week. Then I get a call from a lady, said, hey, Mr. Bryant, this is whoever she was. I'm from the Echoes Children's Home. I'm like, why are you calling me? She said, Sharon is a ward of the state. He lives here. His father's already dead. His mom is on drugs. His brother and sisters were not great examples for him, but he's picking up books. We've never seen this boy pick up a book. I'm like, what? Well, what do you want me to do? They're like, well, we want you to keep doing what you're doing. Can you spend more time with him? I'm like, look, I'm 27 years old. I ain't trying to hang out with no kid on the weekend. But I was in St. Louis. I had no family, no friends there. I had just relocated. So I was like, sure. So literally, I began talking to him, sharing with him what I do. And he told me he had a 1.5 GPA. The boy's in a gang and selling drugs. So this is what he told me, Andy. He said, okay, the real reason why I want to work with you is because with your clientele with Johnson & Johnson, if I show you how I sell my drugs and we can get these drugs into these folk, man, we'll be like, I said, what? I said, have you lost your monkey blankety blank mind? I said, let me tell you how stupid you are. I said, you want me, college educated corporate man, to risk all of this to learn how to sell drugs and sell them to my clientele because we make more money. I said, let me tell you how dumb you are. I said, you sell drugs, right? I said, guess what? I didn't tell you this before, but I sell drugs too. He was like, you do? I said, oh yeah. I said, Johnson & Johnson's the biggest drug company in the freaking world, Jack. What are you talking about? I said, you do sales, I do sales. You do marketing, I do marketing. You do distribution, I do distribution. The difference is when I go to my clients, I sit in an office and we do planograms. We decide where my product is going to sit on the shelf. I said, I never have to look over my back when I'm leaving the client. I never have to wonder if someone's gunning for me to kill me. I said, the other thing is, partner, the women that I'm going to meet going to look better than your snaggletooth, dumb, ignorant women, because who wants a dope dealer except a dope dealer, thuggish looking woman? And I said, so my women going to look better. I'm going to drive better cars. I'm going to live longer. I'm going to have kids. I'm going to have grandkids. And I said, and you're going to be dead or in jail. So tell me about this drugs you want me to sell. He was like, oh. To this day, Andy, you can check it out yourself. Sharon has graduated high school. He studied in Oxford. When I went to Egypt, it was on an invitation by him and his delegation. He studied in Ghana. Last time I checked, he was a regional manager for a big restaurant chain. The boy has not sold drugs. He has not ran in a gang since high school. So yes, it is possible that we can reach these kids, but you have to put the time in the game. It can't be, I'm just going to do my little part and speak to you one day a year, and that's it. That's not going to work.
DB, wow. For the people watching the show, you know why he's known for a very uncanny ability to really capture your attention and motivate change. I mean, amazing. You've got the stop. You've got so much happening. I don't know how you juggle all the balls in the air, but I would imagine it's because you really care about people. You love giving back. You love to mentor. I'm going to bring you back on the show for sure. We're going to take some more of those stories. And for the people watching the show, rewind this interview. I mean, you wake up in the morning, you should DB it every morning. So, Dwayne, thanks so much for coming on the show today. This has been fantastic.
Andy, thank you, my friend. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.